Condoleezza Rice, a woman to inspire all women. Her most recent accomplishments include being the U.S. Secretary of State for 4 years and writing a book. Her name means "with sweetness" in Italian. So where did it all begin, and who is Ms. Condoleezza Rice? Condoleezza was the 66th United States Secretary of State. She served under President George W. Bush. On November 16, 2004, George Bush nominated Condoleezza as Secretary of State. The Senate approved her nomination by a vote of 85-13. She is the first black female, the second African American, as well as the second woman to hold the position of the U.S. Secretary of State. She is a moderate Republican. Condoleezza says she became a Republican when she watched the 1984 Democratic Convention on TV and decided that the Democrats' appeals to women, minorities, and the poor really meant helpless people and the poor. Rice said, "I decided I'd rather be ignored than patronized." Let's take a look at how Ms. Condoleezza Rice became such a powerful woman from her childhood and education to her political career and whatever is next. She was born in Birmingham, Alabama, on November 14, 1954. Condoleezza grew up in the Titusville neighborhood as an only child. Her parents were both educators. Her father, John Wesley Rice Jr., was a high school guidance counselor, football coach, as well as a minister for the Presbyterian Church. Rice's mother, Angelina, was a teacher, and she played the organ in church. She loved the opera and named her only child after an Italian musical term, Condoleezza, which means to play with sweetness. Growing up in Alabama, young Condoleezza experienced firsthand the injustices of city's discriminatory laws and attitudes. Birmingham was clearly divided into black and white spheres, and the two worlds rarely met. You see, at the time, the African American civil rights movement was in full swing. African Americans were asking for equal rights in this country. When Condoleezza was only about 8 years old, vigilantes bombed the home of a family friend, Arthur Shores. In 1963, the 16th Street Baptist Church was bombed, killing 4 little girls going to Sunday school. One of those little girls was Condoleezza's friend from school. Yes, Condoleezza grew up amongst terror. Despite the racial discrimination, Condoleezza was taught by her parents to have a positive attitude and believe that the sky was the limit. In 2004, Condoleezza said this about the incident. "I remember the bombing of that Sunday school at 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham in 1963. I did not see it happen, but I heard it happen, and I felt it happen just a few blocks away at my father's church. It is a sound that I will never forget, that will forever reverberate in my ears. That bomb took the lives of 4 young girls, including my friend and playmate, Denise McNair. The crime was calculated to suck the hope out of young lives, bury their aspirations. But those fears were not propelled forward. Those terrorists failed. Like most parents, they tried to protect little Condoleezza from what was going on. But despite their best efforts, she still was very aware of what was happening. She once told Ebony magazine, "Our parents really did have us convinced that even though I couldn't have a hamburger at Woolworth's, I could be President of the United States." Not too long after the church bombing that killed her friend, the Rice family watched on TV President Lyndon Johnson sign the Civil Rights Act on July 2, 1964. Yes, times were changing. Rice was an incredibly bright student. She skipped both 1st and 7th grade. Her parents encouraged her to give 100% in everything she tried. She took lessons in piano, ballet, violin, French, Spanish, figure skating, and even etiquette and manners. In 1965, she was the first black student to attend music classes at Birmingham Southern Conservatory of Music. John Rice coached football and taught his daughter everything he could about tactics and strategy. Rice grew to love the game and would follow football wherever she went. In 1967, Condoleezza Rice and her family moved to Denver, Colorado, where her dad took a job as the vice chancellor at the University of Denver in Colorado. She started school at St. Mary's Academy. For the first time, Rice attended integrated school, where both African Americans and Caucasian students were taught. During her first year, she was told by a guidance counselor that she wasn't college material, despite her consistently high grades in college preparatory courses. Condoleezza must have been stunned. She was a smart, gifted, hard-working student. Her parents assured her that she didn't deserve that judgment, and she should ignore it. And ignore it she did. In 1970, at the precious age of 15, Condoleezza graduated from St. Mary's Academy and went on to study at the University of Denver. She won a Young Artists competition and was invited to play Mozart's Piano Concerto in D minor with the Denver Symphony Orchestra. Although she was a talented performer, she knew that the competition for professional performers was stiff. She realized she didn't have the right mixture of talents to succeed as a pianist. So she went in search of another major. A lecture on Joseph Stalin captivated her. Fascinated by the intrigues and intricacy of Soviet politics, she decided on the spot to major in political science. She earned her BA, which is a Bachelor's of Arts degree in political science 4 years later. She was awarded the Political Science Honors Award for outstanding accomplishment and promise in the field of political science. 1 year later, in 1975, Rice earned her master's degree in political science from the University of Notre Dame. Yes, Condoleezza was a great student and ambitious. So ambitious that a few years later, at the age of 26, she got her PhD in political science from the Graduate School of International Studies in Denver. As part of Condoleezza's early career, she then took a fellowship at Stanford Center for International Security and Arms Control. It was the first time the center had ever admitted a woman. The fellowship was only supposed to last 1 year, but Condoleezza made such a good impression that Stanford University offered her a job as an assistant professor of political science. As a professor, Rice often used football analogies in her lectures, comparing war and football. Needless to say, her classes were popular, and many athletes attended. By the early 1980s, Condoleezza was teaching at Stanford University and becoming a major public voice on international affairs. A few years later, Condoleezza attended a faculty seminar where Brent Scowcroft, the head of then-President Reagan's Commission of Strategic Forces, spoke on arms control. After the seminar, Rice spoke with Scowcroft and posed challenging questions. He was impressed. So impressed that he started helping her career flourish. He arranged for Condoleezza to attend conferences and seminars. 2 years later, in 1986, Condoleezza Rice was appointed as the special assistant to the director of the Joint Chiefs of Staff at the Pentagon. When Scowcroft became National Security Advisor in 1989, he appointed Condoleezza as the Soviet Affairs Specialist on the National Security Council under the first President Bush. She took part in forming the American reaction to the fall of the Berlin Wall, the discussion of the Warsaw Pact, and the fall of what was then considered the Soviet Union. In 1986, Rice joined the board of directors of the Stanford Mid-Peninsula Urban Coalition. The organization provided assistance to minority students at high risk of dropping out of high school in vocational and academic training. She was appointed to the board of directors of Chevron Corporation in the early 90s. She served them well, and they named a tanker after her in 1993. And she went to Rio de Janeiro to christen it.